It's not science, it's an art.
India's only and the first Master Sommelier, Mr. Kamal Malik.
I get the glass of champagne, I take the glass, smell, taste, and say, Jackson, lovely. I like reading, so I just, whatever little time I found, I used to read these books. Why is one wine more expensive than another? What's the difference between a liqueur and a vodka and everything? Passing the qualification doesn't get you a real job. It had always been tough, It was the first exam I failed. 5 people completed certified sommelier exam. 9/11 happened and everything, and the industry was suddenly going down. We were all worried whether we'll get a job or not.
Exactly.
Wine is a product of whole supply chain. If it gets to a heat stroke, 3 days later, you don't have the same wine. In 2020, and the world turned upside down, the focus went into saving the job. I was like, okay, I'll probably jump out. How rapidly the infrastructure has developed in India. Indian sommelier is even better to cater to Indian palate. Red wines work very, very well with majority of our hearty, strong, slightly spicy curries.
If not Master Sommelier, what would be Kamal Malik otherwise?
There are more options than being doctors and engineers, and these are good options. These are great options. I would still be working for wines.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hospitality Diaries by EliteButlers, and I'm your host Shiv. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for taking your time and giving that trust to us, and it keeps us motivated. So before we start this today's session, I want to warn you. If you actually watch this session till the end, this may challenge your belief. This may make you highly motivated, and this will leave you with no excuses. So please join me in welcoming India's only and the first Master Sommelier, Mr. Kamal Malik. So, Mr. Malik, let's start from the very beginning, okay? Who were you growing up? Where were you born? And how did hospitality come to you?
Well, I was born in a small village near Shamli in Uttar Pradesh. The village is called Hasampur. My parents, the family were farmers, so we grew sugarcane, we grew everything else, a little bit of basmati rice as well. Maybe not as good as Dehradun's, but it was good enough for us. My grandfather was a very hardworking farmer, so initial days we had everything that was grown in there. I studied in Shamli first, and then moved to Navodaya Vidyalaya in Bagra, a small town near Muzaffarnagar, within the same district. That's how the concept goes. You go to the one in your district if you get through the exam. So I went there. From grade 6 to 12, I studied there, and then finally moved to hotel management. So simple village life initially, and then obviously very small town, Bagra, and then eventually to Chandigarh. That's how life is.
I remember you once mentioned that there was someone from the school actually who gave you an insight into hospitality.
Yeah, basically I studied. I did grade 10. I realized my maths wasn't that great. It was okay. I got like 50 marks in grade 10, and like, okay, so I'm not going to do maths. But then I took physics, chemistry, and biology for 11th and 12th. Stupid me, because I realized physics and chemistry is as much mathematics in grade 11. So I got worried. I'm like, okay, so what am I going to do now? My languages are okay. I can manage those. So I had Hindi and English, and obviously, well, whatever else, but it was quite difficult. Biology was okay. I was fine with it, but the other two, I'm like, okay, this is not me. I have to do something else. So you're thinking, what else can you do? And as I said, our teachers were like our family, our friends as well. So we were sitting there eating lunch, and our teacher who was in charge of mess, Mr. Tiwari, JP Tiwari. So he passed by, and we were sitting. He said, "Hey, why are you sitting?" I said, "We are worried." So he said, "Okay, fine. Let me see what's the worry. Let's speak." So he asked, "Okay, so what's the worry?" I said, "No, this is the situation now. I can't be a doctor, and that's not going to happen. So what can I do now?" So he mentioned, rather I asked him, "So what did you do, sir?" He said, "I did hotel management." "Oh, okay, what is that?" And then he explained he did hotel management from Delhi, Pusa, Institute, and then he went on to work in a hotel for, I think, Ashok for a few years. Then he moved to railway catering, and he did a few years there, and then moved to Navodaya Vidyalaya, is in charge of the mess for all the students and everything. Like, that sounds like a career. How can I do that? So he said, let me see, there may be something to guide you through. I'll find something. And he went that time, and then he came up with a book. His wife was the librarian there. So very, very nice lady. So yeah, he came up with this and he said, study this, give the exam. If you pass, you can go to one of the hotel management institutes and probably do what I did. Okay, that sounds good. And then that's what I did.
So you went to IHM, okay, and then you were in IHM Chandigarh, okay. So tell me more about how was it moving from Navodaya to a beautiful, you know, amazing city of Chandigarh. How was it?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, at that age, moving alone to a relatively bigger city, but Chandigarh was nice and calm and quiet and very organized. So it was not that difficult, I would say. You quite liked it. You could walk across, you had pavements. You don't find those in cities in India. Maybe now, back then it was unheard of. So quite nice and green and beautiful, organized city. We quite liked it. Our institute was next to this Beyam Singh Memorial. So right behind, nice location. Uh, it was just outside the city on the border of Mohali and Chandigarh. So you cross the road and you are in Mohali. So for first year, we stayed in Chandigarh, and second and third year, we stayed in Mohali. Both equally nice city. It was lovely. We got used to it. People were nice, jovial, friendly, a little bit over the top, of course. Punjabis are. And the rest of the crowd was Haryanavi, which I relate to because I'm from Shamli and we speak the same language and everything. So it was not difficult getting it. Uh, our college was nice. Our principal, especially, very strict. So something he was very, very much against was ragging and all those things. And he was quite strict on that. Even if you, if he feels you're doing something beyond just asking name, he would be there personally. And quite strict on timing. He taught us the value of keeping on schedule and everything. He would close the gates at 9:10. Those who are out are out. Those who are in until until you finish your college. So some things he instilled. We did not have a hostel at that time. Now I think now definitely the institute has a hostel. But back then we didn't have it, was under construction. So we lived outside in the city, first in Chandigarh and then Mumbai.
Okay, lovely. And then how did Uday Vilas happen to you?
I did my industrial training in Delhi, in Taj. So it was quite nice, Taj Palace. And then I came back and I'm like, okay, now is the time to see where we are going to go. We had so I was like, okay, kitchen is not my thing. I can't stand in front of flame and cook. So F&B was probably my thing back then. So that's what I decided, at least. It worked. So, so I said, okay, I'm going to do F&B. Second year, we had this beverage and everything. And I went to our library there, and there was this book called Sales and Service for Wine Professionals. It was not actual book, it was a photocopy of the book, which was quite common back then. Finding books in India was not an easy task. It was a photocopy. It was there in the library, and I picked it up and I started reading. Very intense book for someone who was still in IHM. So that gave me a little bit about beverage knowledge, which came in handy. Our college was about to finish in 2002, March, April. And just before that, in September of 2001, the whole 9/11 happened and everything, and the industry was suddenly going down. Uh, we were all worried whether we'll get a job or not. But campus interviews happened, less than what used to be in previous years, but still many people came in and everything. So I got selected for JP Palace Agra in the campus interview. We went to Agra to give the interview. Nice city. First time I went to Agra, saw the Taj Mahal. Did the interview, was successful, was very happy, came back, did our exams, and right after was an open uh, interview by Oberoi's Maiden. So the invite came to the college and said, okay, whoever wants to participate can go. So I went for the man said, there's no harm trying. It's Oberoi's today. So I went, stayed with one of my friend who used to study in Delhi at that time, one of my best friends, uh, and then went for the interview. On the first round, which was group discussion round, we were taken by a gentleman called Vikram. I later realized that Vikram was Vikram Oberoi, a very humble man, of course, and very, very smart to tell you. Of course. And then I realized that when the final interview was happening for Oberoi Udayavilas for me, and we had the GM of Oberoi Udayavilas at that time, Mr. Joseph Polito, and Vikram Oberoi sitting. So it was the first time I heard he was Vikram Oberoi, not Vikram. It was nice, was fun, and then he said, to succeed in industry, what's the one thing that you need? Come on. Knowledge, skill. I said, no, you need passion. Okay. I took that word to my heart and started working in Oberoi Udayavilas. I think it was 1st June 2002 when I went and joined. So I went there apparently on my interview sheet was written strong technicals on beverage. So I was straight away put into a bar. We had the senior bartender. Her name was Parul Pandey and me. So we were two people. We had two bars to manage. That's how I went to. Then we both came to Mumbai to get trained because obviously I was the pressure. I had never worked in a bar. So we worked in a bar called Opium Den and a couple of other places, the lounge bar in Oberoi, Mumbai. We were there for 2 or 3 weeks, if I remember correct. And then we came back, we set up our bar, got the license and started operating eventually.
When I joined Udayavilas in 2008, I was also sent to the bar after some time, and I can still resonate, that the comfort of that place, it's slightly very different. And of course, I also learned from my mentors, who were already there, but I'm sure they had a decently trained system. I found it very easy by the time. So I'm sure it's a lot to do with leaders like you who probably were the initial, faces or people who kind of set this whole place together. So thank you for doing that. It was easy for us to kind of settle in that place. Okay, moving forward. So then from Udayavilas, you moved to Taj. So tell me about the transition from Oberoi to the Taj.
I mean, Oberoi is great for learning, very structured, very organized, as you just mentioned. Everything's set in terms of standards. It was a great learning for first 2 years. Then we had this gentleman coming in, Vikramaditya Singh. So he came to Udayavilas as F&B manager back then. Landed straight from US. Came in and it was a funny incident with that. He looked at my wine list. Back then we had about 60 labels on there. He looked at, Chablis, France, Burgundy, whatever the price. And he said, okay, the name is wrong. I'm like, no, Chablis is a village. It's in Burgundy. It's in France. What's wrong in this? Then what's the producer's name? I'm like, producer? Chablis is a village that produces wine. That's the producer. No, bring the bottle. That was my first wine lesson, actually. And he told me to read from the label, understand what's written there, write it properly, because it needs to be identified, the producer, the vintage, the name of the wine, and all those things. So since he did teach me, then I had to go back to every 60 bottles, look at the names, correct it, and make it. So he was quite a key in teaching me. Then about bartending, he knew a lot, and he personally trained me on cocktails, making cocktails, thinking of combinations. So naturally, when he moved in his career as the director of F&B for Palace hotels between Rambagh Palace and Lake Palace. He said, "Would you like to join the legendary polo bar, Rambagh Palace?" Like, why not? Let's take that opportunity. Uh, and he said, "Okay, fine. Then you'll have to come here for an interview with our GM." Okay. So I landed in, and then I was supposed to stay in SMS Hotel. Now, SMS was a new thing back then, phones were just new. SMS Hotel, who keeps that kind of a name? I realized it's Sawai Mansingh Hotel, which was adjacent to to the SMS Hotel. So I stayed there overnight. Next day morning, went to do the interview, which was more of a formality if you have been invited by the director of F&B. I mean, do. But very important, we met this great gentleman called Dilip Puri, who was the general manager at that time. Vibrant personality, very, you felt that, yeah, you have a great GM, just by looking at him. He had that vibe about him. So yeah, so I went, started working in Polo Bar with some recipes. It was a very interesting combination there. And I learned a lot about respect there in a way because we were youngsters and Taj was trying to build a younger team there. But at the same time, we also had these elders who had been there and their parents probably worked there through generations because the property was owned by the former kings of Jaipur. So there was this hereditary lineage, and probably their kids would work there too, and us, who was the new blood coming in. And, we obviously were at a very different pace than them. And they were like, "Why are you at that pace? It's hospitality. It's not rocket science. Calm down. You know, people will be." And it took us some time, but we learned a lot from them. That it's about, being confident, being and not hurried. It's not science. It's an art, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot how they handle guests and everything. So it was a great move. I think we uh, it taught us patience. It taught us respect. It taught us how experience brings something very, very different to table. So I'm sure they learned something from us too, in terms of technique, in terms of, checklists, in terms of many other things. We learned a lot in return as well. It was a great stint.
And I got to know that in between you did some call center job as well, right? So
Oh, yeah.
what was going on in your mind? And actually, in the phase that this was happening, and I could also relate because in the journey when we were in our initial days, I don't know how about your initial phase, but when I started with Uday Vilas, my salary was 6,500 something, which of course you would get put two times, but then everything you have to arrange. And at that moment, Gurgaon and Noida was booming. A lot of hospitality professionals had kind of moved into these roles, and it was glamorous. People were making decent amount of money. They had like they got bikes, and we were still struggling. How did we move out of hotels to this? And tell me more about it.
Indian hospitality has a drawback. There is no real distinction between personal life and then uh, work culture there. It was, I don't know if it is still the same. It probably is. Things don't change that fast in our country, but it was a little bit of, you overdo. You were there involved the whole day. You took it as responsibility, long shifts and everything in Rambagh Palace. That became a norm because the whole hotel, part by part, the entire this thing was getting renovated, and we had high ambitions. Uh, Rambagh was transforming at that time. Uh, Today, it is one of the best hotels in India. Back then, it was in that transformation phase. So we were like, we had to do something really special. We put up the first 170 label list, wine list there, and I was the only one who was reading those labels, keeping those aligned and organized. Everyone was overwhelmed. So I had to be around to make sure when people want that wine, I could look for it. Uh, so trainings and everything. So it was completely different atmosphere. Basically, that meant that you worked very, very long hours. After a while, it gets to your head, and you know, and then I realized, as you mentioned, that there were people who were getting 2 days holiday, getting paid much better than us, uh, for working for 9 hours a day. Out of that, 1 hour was a lunch break. We didn't know when we were going to eat. We worked in the hotel. So it got to my head after some time. I did a year and a half there. I had done almost 2 years in Udaipur. So about 3.5, it was enough. And I'm like, in 3.5 years, I have nothing to show in terms of savings. Okay, let's forget it. And the only requirement was you could speak English, which by that time I could. So,
I also, in a phase of my time, I was bored of hospitality because, like, you're looking outside and you're seeing things are moving very fast. And I actually went for a couple of interviews as well. So some of them I got through. Some of them also, there was like, consultant who would call you for interview, and then they'll also train you. So there is like, it's a first way. You go there, then you'll say, you know what, you're good, but you may have to do a training for 30 days. So you pay a certain amount. So at that point also, that investment was something that I could not do it. So I came back. Of course, I continued in hotels. So now what brought you back to the hotels?
well, a wake up call, I worked for a full year basically in two different call centers, so 6 months and 6 months. First in Converges, then in Excel. So the whole thing of doing this as a living was wearing off, and I was like, okay, it's not an easy task sitting overnight, answering calls, questions, and it was a new industry as well. So it was not that people were very accepting that you would have to call someone who sits in a different country. And I worked for a US based process for Citibank, of course. And then in EXL, we worked for Norwich Union, which was a UK based insurance giant. So two different things, but and which taught me finance management. I realized how credit card companies work and what to look out for if you don't want to be in debt forever, and how insurance companies work. So it was lovely, but it was wearing off, and it was I was getting a little bit bored back then. And I suddenly get this call again from Vikramaditya Singh. Always thankful to him. So he called me from Maldives. He had then joined as general manager of Taj Exotica in Maldives. So he reached out, he called me, he said, "Do you know where is Maldives?" I said, "It's in Indian Ocean." "Yeah, which side?" I said, "I don't know. I need to find out." But yeah, find out, you're coming here. I'm like, "I'm coming here? Why? You know, no, 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 I'm telling you, you're coming here. I know you become lazy. I'm not lazy. I work overnight." Stuff like that. So he said, "No, no, no, you're coming here and going to work here again in hospitality." Like, "Oh, I have no such plans." He said, "Who asked your plans? Your offer letter is there. Read it, sign it, send it to me, and send me the documents. Please start processing the visa." So back then my girlfriend, uh, she was also in the same. She used to work for GE back then. We both left Rambagh here. So both of us looked at our emails, found our offer letters, finally decided yes, we're going to go back to hospitality, which was a great move. We were both there at the edge that it's probably not for us. So the right break came, and we took the offer, looked where Maldives was, and went to Maldives.
And one thing that I enjoyed reading about you and the journey, because a lot of us in hospitality complain that we don't have time, we are going, which we know that we do long hour shift. And of course, financially as well, we are not that strong, right? You don't have a lot of savings. So how was this happening? Because I know that you're also studying and growing in the parallel, right? This was also something that you were doing. So tell me a little bit about your, in the side when you were kind of doing this wine education, getting into, nitty-gritties of this trade. How did this idea of educating yourself in wine came in, and how did you take your first step, then the second? So tell us through this journey, please.
Sure, yes. So basically, I started in Udaipur. I was a teetotaler, never had alcohol in my life, and I get sent to bar. So now I realize I know nothing about this beyond what I studied in hotel school. So I have to really, you know, work around it. So the first training that happened in Mumbai, we learned mixing drinks, and I realized mixing doesn't make sense until I understand how it tastes. So that's how the tasting started. So I would mix, would taste a bit, understand how the cocktail comes up, what needs to be adjusted. So that became a habit. And then you use different liqueurs. What's the difference between a liqueur and a vodka and everything? That's how it started. Uh, there were no real schools and all in India that I knew of or I could find. I'm talking 2002. So, but obviously, internet was already there. There was some listing, some people told about certain books and everything, and I did read Sales and Service for Wine Professionals back then. So I started finding what could be, go through bookshelves and see if there is any book on wine or spirit or something. I think Wine Spectator used to come to Uday Vilas. It used to be in GM's office. And our GM, I told you, Joseph Polito, very nice, kind gentleman. When the bar gets full, he would get out from his office and come and help me in the bar because, yeah, he probably wanted to have an aperitif, but then he realized the bar is full. He'll just come and serve the drinks until that first wave of aperitif drinkers go down to the restaurant. He would help me, then he'll have his aperitif and go. so, uh, so he had these wine spectator. He gave me. Then Vikramaditya Singh came in, and he was a certified sommelier. So he's the one who told me the word sommelier for the first time. And I'm like, okay, what is this? And then he told me what he has. And he had some nice books. He had actually quite a big collection of books in his house. So he gave me World Atlas of Wine. He gave me Sothby's Wine Encyclopedia to read. And I started reading a couple of wine books, two books on cigars. And I like reading. So I just, whatever little time I found, or sometimes, in the afternoons when no one's coming to the bar, but the place needs to be manned. So I used to read these books. Uh, so yeah, that became education at that time. Then just before the opening, Sanjay Menon, the gentleman with big mustache, came to do wine training for us. And I tasted my first wine and the 30th wine because there were 30 wines in the tasting. Training lasted 2 or 3 days, if I remember. So we learned quite a bit, tasted wine, understood what's tasty about it, what's nice about it. So yeah, that's how it slowly started. So all these people came together in my life to kind of put me in this direction. And yes, I had to find time. You never had more time than anyone else. No one had. So you have to find that time for your passion. So
Your first stint was somewhere like, the first step that W said first. Of course, I think most of us, we do it in the hotels, right? So was this your first step as well of learning about wines? And then how did you take the next step forward, moving from there?
see, WSET was not happening in India, and I had not heard about it until I reached Maldives. And in Maldives, the discussion came up. But then again, it was not happening anywhere around. So I was, I did not have the kind of money to go to London to do a wine course. So none of this was in plan. But I kept learning through these books and everything. Once I moved to Maldives, that became a little bit more easier to find these things, and I continued studying through these wine books. Internet was getting a little bit more evolved, and I started finding books. If you had enough time, it could come to your home. So that was a great thing that helped. So I ordered these books. They'll come home. I will take them over, start reading. So that's how it was working. Uh, when I moved back to Delhi in 2009, 9, 10, I was there for a year working for Taj Mahal Hotel, Taj Mansingh, popularly known as, because it's on the Mansingh Road. Uh, so when I moved there, then the opportunity to do WSET level 2 in wine came up. Taliho was doing their first course for WSET level 2. Uh, Ajit Malgi was our instructor. I said, okay, we need to do this. And yeah, so that's the time I did my first WSET level 2 in 2010. By then, I had read all these wine books and everything. I didn't really need to read the book, the WSET book. I was quite well versed, uh, at least at that level. So was quite wasn't challenging enough. And obviously, availability of wine in India was a challenge, and what you got was relatively not well kept. So, and I had done 3 years just before that in Maldives. I knew how wines tasted like. So I did this, and I said, things have changed now to much better. But back then, I'm like, this is not how I'm going to do my wine course if I will, and I'll have to find some other place next time when I do. And then luckily, I moved back to Maldives again to World of Astoria. That's when I did the rest of the course. We had this gentleman called Sunny Chuan, who was the group wine director. And I asked him, okay, so now I'm head sommelier of World of Astoria, and we do these great wine dinners. We have these long communal table. Twice a week, we'll have like 6 couples sitting there along with me. We'll do wine and dine, and we'll talk through, and we'll have multiple different bottles opened. And people would ask, okay, fine, you seem to be pretty knowledgeable about some of those things. What have you studied? What have you learned? And believe me, WSET level 2 is not the qualification you went in at that table. So I asked him, well, what should I do now to answer this question? He said, do one thing, do Court of Master Sommeliers. There's the certified sommelier course, and then you're a certified sommelier. And then I realized, okay, yes, Vikramaditya Singh did the same, and he told me about it. So life came full circle. I said, okay, so where will that happen? And he put me in touch with Mr. Tommy Lamb, elderly gentleman then, obviously way more elderly now, who was running the courses across Asia, very energetic. Today, at 75 plus, he's more energetic than I am. So imagine then. So he was doing that first course in Hong Kong in 2011, introductory and certified. So I reached out to him. He said, yeah, come on. 45 people were there in the course, and I personally met these master sommeliers for the first time in my life. In fact, this year in Decanter, met him again. I read 2 of his books called Perfect Pairing and Daring Pairing, some of the best books on wine and food pairing, because I had to do it every week. Even Goldstein from US. And he was my instructor for the first course. And I met him, Brian Julian, whose book, Sales and Service for Wine Professionals, I found photocopied at my library. And I see him in person right in front of me. So it was quite nice. And it was my first visit to Hong Kong. The wine culture was very different, very vibrant, availability, access. And we had sommeliers for all around those places: Hong Kong, mainland China, Taiwan, Macau. So quite a few. And uh, we were 2 people from Maldives, me and my friend Rakesh Shetty, both of us went to do the course. And we passed. Out of 45 people there, 5 people completed certified sommelier exam. I realized how tough standards they set. And yeah, I was head sommelier in World of Astoria. A day before, I was doing a wine dinner for some of my guests, and I took one bottle of champagne and poured to 14 people sitting on the table because they had ordered course by course a different wine. So I served 14 people equal amounts. That day, in my practical exam, when I see Brian Julian, whose book I read, sitting and asking me to pour 6 equal glass, my hands were like this. Yeah. But then I realized and that's how it basically started. Then opportunities keep coming, and I kept going back to Hong Kong. Since I did not know any better, I did both sides of it. So I studied WSET, and then I studied Court of Master Sommeliers. So which I don't regret any, because learning is learning, and my objective was always learning. Uh, because the trajectory was such, in our case, especially, the courses became available after I had achieved the levels I was supposed to have achieved in a vibrant market after doing these courses. So it was going completely there. So my whole motivation to do the course was learning. So it did not matter which one I took. Uh, so I used to like investing in myself and learning. So that's how this came into. The more you study, more you read through, you realize there's a lot more to. So it depends on the depth you want to go into. And I kept digging. In WSET, you get a book that you have to study, pretty detailed, quite nice and precise. And you study theory and do a theory exam, and then once you hit level 3, you do a tasting exam. Level 3, if I remember correct, now it is 2 wines, blind tasted. Back then it used to be 3, if I remember correct. But I've given so many, I maybe we had 3 wines to blind taste and write about those, put the tasting notes and everything. So in blind tasting, you you describe a wine based on flavors that you find in those wines, your aromas, flavors, what do you see? And then you try to conclude in terms of quality level, in terms of, what you think of the wine in general. And you may try to identify it in terms of its provenance, where it comes from, country, the region, the grape variety. Uh, but a good tasting note at WSET level 3 is important. Others become secondary. In Court of Master Sommeliers, you have 3 sets. So you obviously do your theory exam, which is a bit more to the point, in the sense, in WSET you are asked to elaborate and explain in a paragraph what you learned about a particular region or a particular style of wine or a particular grape variety. In here, you have pointed questions, which usually will end in a one word or one sentence answer with no hints given. So it's not multiple choice or anything. And you can't, either that's the answer or you don't know the answer. So slightly different formats. So you do theory like that. Then you have a service exam where you actually go serve a table, like I said, pouring 6 equal glasses of sparkling wine or white wine, answering wine and food pairing questions, talking about spirits, talking about liqueurs, talking about everything else that happens. Luckily, I was a bar manager way before, so spirits questions never bothered me too much until I hit the master's level and I realized, okay, there's a lot to be known. So, that. Uh, so you do your service exam, and then you do your tasting exam, which up to the certified level was 2 wines, blind tasted, and you describe the wine and explain the provenance, country, region, grape variety, vintage. And you choose an answer, and based on that, you get your points in. And if I remember correct, 60% was the passing mark here, 55% in WSET. WSET level 4 has 6 units. So you do a research project. And when I did it, it used to be wine and spirits. So I had a spirits exam with 3 spirits, blind tasting, got a book from them on spirits to study and prepare. And then back then, now they give you a very nice book for WSET level 4. Back then, there was no book. So you got Oxford Companion to Wine from Jancis Robinson to study as your course book. Just take a book, uh, scare you off, and you do your research project. And first year, you do your champagne and sparkling, spirits, fortified wines, research project, and another one, closed book project that you would know from before, and a question will be asked on that. So these 4, 5 units you would do in the first year, and the second year comes your unit 3, so only one. And this had a theory exam of 3 hours where you wrote essay type questions on different subjects, and 12 wines blind tasting in a set of 3 each, where you'd encounter a different question. So it might say these 3 wines are from one grape variety, but from different countries. Identify grape variety and country, and obviously do a proper tasting note. The next one might say it's a mixed bag. You have 3 wines, guess the provenance and whatever. Other 3 may be, okay, these are 3 wines from same region, same grape, identify the quality level. So that's how the questions work in the blind tasting. And you'll have 2 sets of 6 each poured to you, and you would do your exam. Level 4 was a great learning experience.
A lot of people still are aspiring to reach to level 3. I know a lot of professionals have done it. Level 4 is a big one, right? Is a bigger monster, as I say. So how much time does it take generally? What are the basic parameters, or what are the various syllabus, I would say, for this? How much time does it take, and what are the various tests that you go through? If you can explain that.
Sure. Yes. Level 4, yes, as you mentioned, is a very, very different beast than level 3. The book, I think even now, is titled Creating Trade Professional, which is what it does, because you do quite an extensive research, market analysis. You get into it, you understand the whole business very, very differently, and you do blind testing and theory exams on everything, essay type questions, forming gathering your ideas, doing your research, and putting it into a certain style. That's what WSET level 4 teaches you. It's obviously gathered more towards the trade of wine. So mainly importing, exporting, something that I utilize now in my current role. So that's quite an interesting thing. So you learn how to express yourself, how to write, and at the same time taste in a certain way, to identify quality, to understand not just the characteristics. You've already passed the level where you give tasting notes. Here you're analyzing, you're understanding why is one wine more expensive than other. Why is one wine considered higher quality than other? Why we say this is a great wine and the other one from the same grape variety, probably from the same region, isn't. So you analyze those things, and you do it for sparkling wine, you do it for fortified wines, you do it for still wines, and that's your learning process. Now you get a book from WSET that you read through, and then you relate to how that winemaking style changed that wine. So you do these essay type questions, submit research project report, and then do your blind tasting to learn these tricks. That's the exam. It takes about 2 years, because first year you do these, the second year you do the other one. Took me 2.5, because I did the exam in October. The result came in December, and you have to enroll immediately after. Without knowing the result, you can't enroll. So I deferred that cycle, took the second year. It's a big financial commitment. Unless you're sticking to that trade, unless you've made up your mind and realize you're going to be a specialist and going to do this and you enjoy doing it, it's a huge financial commitment. So if you're not waiting to get return on investment, don't do it. You could be very well off. I was deep into it. I knew I'm only going to do this. I never wanted to be a director F&B or the management route. I had made up my mind by then. So it made sense for me.
To have someone, kind of do this course, how much are we looking at? How did you prepare financially for this? If you can give some advices around it.
I don't know if I'm the right person. As I said, it wasn't available for a very long time. And I was in a certain position when I started doing it. So I was relatively more secure financially. I had a 3-year expat stint. I saved some money. I was beverage manager in a big hotel in Delhi. So it did not. My principle always stayed. If I can't pay for this within 2 months' salary, I would not go for it. I'll wait for me to get that because obviously you have other things as well. You have other commitments. You have family to look after. So more often than not, that's how I looked at my investment. Uh, if it's more than 2 months and you don't see a clear path around, no point doing.
As an Indian context, like it's almost like preparing for an IAS exam. You kind of sit every year. So tell me more, like how difficult was it, then to make it to that point where you actually achieved it? How was that feeling, to be the India's only and the first master sommelier?
It had always been tough. It was the first exam I failed. Until WSET level 4, I did not face failure. And I did my advanced exam the same year I passed my diploma. So I was quite confident that, I will clear it like this, and WSET level 4. But the formats are different. I'm not saying one's better than other. It's just an entirely different thing. So advanced exam was again, and I failed theory. So it was a setback, and I'm like, okay, you need to rewire, you need to relearn and do. Uh, then I went back next year and I passed my advanced exam. So this is until Hong Kong was all set. And now suddenly I am at that point in my life in 2016 where I have a WSET level 4. And technically I could go for Master of Wine. We have one in India. Her name is Sonal Holland.
Of course, everyone knows
Uh,
about her. Yes.
yeah, she took that path, and another one was Master Sommelier because I had just completed my advanced. So both of these, and then again I went back to my rule, saying what can I do in my 2 months salary max, and I realized okay, I would do Master Sommelier because one shot financial commitment was around $5,000, let's say, roughly five and a half thousand, because I had to get the visa to London and go to London, stay there for a week, acclimatize, do the exam, which happens over 3 days, and pay the fee. They don't charge you much, luckily. I'm not relative to what a Master of Wine course would have costed me, even though they are technically equally difficult and in a way equivalent qualifications. Course of Master Sommeliers, being a non-profit, doesn't charge you that much. And it was possible to do within that 2-month thing that I talked about. So I was like, okay, so that's what I'm going to do first. That's how I put it in my mind. And then if I start making so much that Master of Wine makes sense, I would probably go for that later. So that was what I explained to myself and queued up. So exam is by invite only. just because you passed advanced doesn't necessarily mean you'll get a seat immediately. Take about 2, 3 years. So suddenly, in the month of June in 2018, I got an email from Edward Roger, Master Sommelier, who now became my good friend. So he's probably everyone's friend because he maintains that integrity of the list. He'll make sure you're rightly queued up. And he recalls and then suddenly in June he said someone dropped out of the exam, which happens. So he said someone dropped out. The exam is in October. I understand if you decline, uh, I'll still keep you on the list. But then since you are the next one on the list, would you like to give an exam in October? So this is June
Which year was this?
2018.
2018. Okay.
So I'm like, yes, I will queue up because once you get in, you pass or fail, at least you'll get a second chance. So now I'm in a waiting list otherwise. So I said, yes, I will do that. Paid my fee, started studying. And back when you do your advanced level, and it was 2 years ago, but I was still studying a bit. And then I was at the top of the world saying, I've done advanced. How much more difficult can it be? So I was quite energetic, impressed, studied hard for the next 3 months, got my visa sorted, took a 2-year visa just in case I don't pass this year, I will pass next year. Uh, so took a 2-year visa, went there to London, uh, got trashed like anything. Everything. When they started asking questions like, oh, these questions exist. This is what I need to prepare for my master's exam. And I'm like, and there's no book for it. When you ask them why, they say, one, we are an examining body. Two, if you're sitting for masters, you better know. And passing mark changes from 60% to 75. The format stays the same. You do blind tasting of 6 different wines in 25 minutes, all oral. Oral makes it slightly difficult in the sense that if you've written down your tasting note, you can go back to it, say, okay, I said medium plus acidity, not so many aromas. So we're talking about a neutral. But if you haven't trained your mind to remember what you said, there's nothing to go back to. So you're under time pressure. You have to do it in 4 minutes, and you have 6 wines, and you got to get 5 right to be 50, to be 75% out of 6. That's what it turns out to be. Okay, that's 80, but yeah, that's more or less it. So you don't get much leeway. Margin of error isn't very big. So that's blind tasting. Then you have your theory exam, which I just told you about. I heard those questions. I was like, oh, okay. Do I need to know this as well? So that's how it goes. And it's 70 or 80 questions, some of them 2 parts. So let's say around 100 questions that you need to answer in 60 minutes. So about 45 seconds a question. And all tough ones. There's no easy ones down there. And then you serve, you do the service exam. So 3 or 4 tables, depending on that particular year. You will probably go to one table, open a sparkling wine, and then answer the questions of people sitting. All these people sitting are master sommeliers. There's no way to bullshit your way through. They know the answers, and they know how detailed and how proper a service needs to happen. Uh, and so you do this on 4 different tables, decanting, pouring a sparkling wine, opening and suddenly out of nowhere you get a blind tasting, a small one, not a long one, but of some spirits or some fortified wines or some liqueurs, and you have to quickly identify what it is, talk about it, where it is, how to promote it, how to use it in a restaurant, and you may turn up getting to use a Coravan machine on how to pour, talk more about it. So it's quite advanced, and you get a balance sheet kind of a thing which you have to manage and understand. You get to do costing. You may have to plan an event in a way. This many guests coming, how much? Obviously, because you're managing an entire beverage program, sometimes for multiple hotels at that time at that level. So technically, passing the qualification doesn't get you a new job, but all the effort that you put behind, all the learning that you take with you helps you grow in your career because you have handled those things, you have learned those things, you have implemented those things practically. And that's why they say we are an examining body, uh, because you should be doing these things in general and upping your level. So yeah, that's what it entails. So first year was quite challenging, understanding what was happening. Uh, Came back heartbroken, but resolute in my heart that I'm going to do it again. And then you know how it goes. There's work pressure. There's there's less time. You have travels. You have everything else around, and you forget to study. You take it a little bit light. By the time you realize you're already in April, exam is in October, and you realize how badly you got crashed last year. You start studying. The work never changes. So yeah, 2019 happened. 2019 went back again, got trashed again. A good friend of mine came in. Both of us got trashed. And then you realize you meet people in these exams who are very bright, at top of their game. Uh, they know the stuff well, and they have done 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempts, and they're still there trying to pass. And it hasn't happened. As I said, 3% pass rate. Uh, every year, about, say, 200 people give exam. If 6 or 7 passes, is a great thing. Between us and US, yeah, roughly about 150 seats, which now is increasing to about 200 seats because there are more people. Like we're trying to clear the backlog and get more people a chance to do it. And let's say out of 200, if 5, 6 people pass, it's a great achievement. So it is a tough exam, and from board's perspective, to quantify, if you put someone as a master, they should be able to show it. So there is, just because no one passes in a year is not motivation enough for them to pass more the next year. They say you clear your line, you do your 75%, and then you pass. So there's no let go. The exam is intentionally made tough. So that continues. It's a grind.
So year two, and then you continued after.
No, I didn't. Year two was a bigger heartbreak. And then came 2020 and the world turned upside down. It was COVID. And the focus went into saving the job than studying for anything. So 2021 went like that. I could not get a new visa, could not go to UK, uh, and focus was on the job. So after 2 years of not studying and all that, I was like, okay, I can't. I'll probably jump out and not do it. And then my wife said, so what are you going to do then? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you like to study, you want to stay updated. That's why you took up the quest. You are the only Indian in the queue to this exam at the moment. So it's not only your responsibility is not only to yourself, it is to everyone else as well. And anyway, you got to study, right? You need to keep yourself updated. Like this gives you a reason why not. And life has moved on. That financially, I was able to do it. So yeah, so I'm like, but I'm out of practice now. I have not studied for last 2 years. So start again. WSET came to rescue. So around November, WSET had during COVID days launched a new course for spirits, WSET Level 3 in spirits. So I was very interested in spirits, obviously. been a bartender and been a bar manager. So I said, let's do it. So spoke to a couple of my friends. Yes. So I'm like, that will be the practice to study again and everything. Exam was in April. So I studied over the winter, went there to Dubai to do the exam, got back into practice, passed that one, gave me some confidence, came back, started studying wine again. Uh, and coach of Master Sommelier helped. Uh, Edward, you know, in 2020, I had paid my fee, but I could not go because of all the visa issues. So I wrote to him saying, I'm sorry, I can't come. I can't get a visa. So I'll see when I can. He said, don't worry, your fees will be moved to the next year and I will contact you again. Okay, great. Next year, he asked me, I said, I still can't come. Visas are not open. He said, don't worry, your fee will be moved to next year and you will get a seat. So he kept, reminding me. And then in January of 2022, when this email came again, and I was already by then studying for level 3 to get me back in shape, I quickly replied, yes, obviously I will be coming this year. And I said, okay, don't worry, your fees is there with us. That's fine. It'll be used this year. And okay, so money, financial commitments there. Now I have to study. That kept me going, and then got that push, started studying again, went to Dubai, practiced tasting quite a bit before my exam, uh, and theory, of course. Got a friend in Stephen Towler. Now he's a master sommelier as well. But we were both studying together back then. So, so we used to, exchange notes. And then went, and this year, London 22, uh, I saw some sunshine, which is rare in London. And also it was a tough exam. It was really, especially the tasting exam, was supposedly very, very tough. We were 45 of us that year, and only one person passed the tasting exam. That was me. I was equally surprised. And few people passed the service exam, few people passed the theory, but no one completely, there was no master sommelier. Yeah. So by then, I had appeared in 3 exams. In 2018 London exam, about 45 seats again. That's roughly what you get in London. 0 pass. 2019, 1 pass. 2022, when I went again, 0 pass. I passed 2 parts, but I was not a master sommelier. So that gives you an insight on how much motivation a person has when you come back. Like, no one's passing. It doesn't feel like, And then I go in 2023 to Austria, because once you've passed your service part, you assign to Austria. Austria, they don't do the service exam. They only do the theory and tasting. So I had only theory left. In fact, when I passed in 22, these 2 parts, I think Frank Kamal, who was doing the exam, German gentleman, who was giving me my feedback, was more excited than I was telling me my result. He said, there's a real possibility of an Indian becoming a master sommelier. Don't mess it up. Study hard. Come back strong the next year and everything. And then he told me I was missing out and everything. So it was a good conversation. Uh, and then the next year I went back and I fell short again. But there were 2 passes that year. So that was the bright spot. And we, after passing the exam, you get a great glass of champagne or a sparkling wine, which you look forward to, and it's nice to be drinking at least to someone that, someone passed. In victory, you deserve it, and in defeat, you need it. That's what a good bubbly does to you. So, yeah. And then in 24, I finally passed my theory exam early morning. First, it was three of us who had studied or advanced together. Two of my friends from China and Taiwan, Kevin Liu and Derek. Derek, unfortunately, hasn't passed yet. He's there. He's almost there. He's a great, bright guy, but, you know, that 75% is not happening yet. Kevin passed with me, first Taiwanese Master Sommelier, and we were three in the first early morning batch doing our theory exam. Yeah, that's when I passed, and my wife told her I passed. No, I messaged her. I didn't call her. I said I can talk to you later. Let me tell more people. Um, Messaged Sanjay Menon that I passed. No, I didn't message Sanjay Menon. I did not. Uh, I messaged. I was about to message him, and his call came. I said, "Oh, I heard now you're a big man. Now I'll have to take appointment to speak to you." Like, I didn't say this. Yeah, okay. How did you know? I just started telling people. But he knew by then. And few other friends, Rajiv Singhal, I sent him a message that I passed finally. Few other friends, and then the word spread. Yeah, so I was not in social media back then. I had a I had a profile on Instagram, which I made to study with two of my friends in China because no other app was working. So we were just like three people who were mutual followers. And then suddenly, course of Master Sommeliers marked me in one of the photos, and then it changed. And now I do look at it.
You mentioned about Mr. Singhal, during this
Yes.
conversation, and I'm also aware that there was a certain part of his contribution to where you are today. Can you highlight about it?
I did not know him in the initial listing of my career. He's the one who reached out. I used to be, so I did my level two in India in 2010. And then immediately after a couple of months, I moved back to Maldives, and I was in Waldorf Astoria at that time. But I was amongst the 4, 5 top scorers in that year who who he was interviewing for giving a champagne scholarship to, to, you know, to people who showed potential. So he reached out. I did not know him at that time, but he reached out. He was the head of CIVC. He is the head of CIVC in India. Very decorated gentleman. He has this knack of finding and supporting talent at a time in the early stages. So he reached out. We had a good discussion on what's my favorite champagne, why it's my favorite champagne, and all those things, which was the interview for it. And I was successful. But for some reason in 2011, the trip didn't happen. It happened in 2012. So CIVC paid for the trip, Champagne Committee. So we got our air tickets done, hotels, everything was looked after. We went to 5 different estates, 5 different philosophies. CIVC took us to their office, taught us everything about champagne, which is a great initiative. And you identify. We had some journalists from India coming in uh, as well on the trip, and we land in. I met him on the airport for the first time because before that we just spoke on on phone for the interview. And if I remember correct, 2010-11, we did it on Skype, and I don't think it was a video call. This was 3G was new back then. And it didn't work that well, so it was still an audio call. So I land in Champagne, and I meet Rajiv Singhal for the first time. And then we were talking all through the way from airport to this place. We kind of found some common champagne we both liked. Very, he's a guy who listens. He's a good listener. And then he probes you with questions and stuff, but he's a good listener. So that was a great thing. And we reach Champagne, we go to the restaurant. There's one guy standing there with a tray full of champagne glasses for us. People from CIVC are there to welcome us. I get the glass of champagne. I take the glass, smell, taste, and say, "Ah, Jatson, lovely, red champagne." And everyone, suddenly turned around, looked at me. Okay, we got the right guy, who in one sit can tell you the name of the champagne. So suddenly, perspectives changed and everything. Then we sit down for lunch, we're having lunch, and Rajiv Singhal, he asked me, "So, how do you know it was Jackson?" We were outside the restaurant, no? And like in Waldorf Astoria, my house champagne was Jackson. I was drinking it every day, so I recognized the taste. He said, "Okay, well, keep it to you. Right now, things have changed." No, no. So no, we had a lovely trip. It was great learning. And then around the same time, because I was going there, uh, I reached out to Mr. Menon and said, this is the harvest time. Can I probably do a harvest internship? He said, well, yes. I have good friends in Perrin. They came to your resort last year. You looked after them well. They'll be happy to take you in and let you learn some winemaking. So I went there. Uh, right after the Champagne part, I moved to Rhone Valley in Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and the harvest was going on. So uh, Pierre Perrin, owner of was there with me. He picked me up. He took me to that where the harvest was happening, and and I did the harvest for a couple of hours. Then he came back, picked me up for lunch, and said, "Do you want to do this for next 3 weeks? Because that's what happens in a harvest. You go, you pick the grape. I tell you which ones are the right quality. Accordingly, you pick, drop it in a bigger tent. Or you want to go to the winery and see what happens in winery." I said, "Yeah, I would probably go to the winery. That would be more." So we went to Perrin Winery, beautiful large winery, managed by 10 people, all mechanical sorting, top of the line equipment, lots of volume, lots of wines being made, red, white, rosé, but only 10 people managing it. Almost 2 million bottles being produced in that winery. And then a week later, he said, "Okay, let's go to Chateau Castel and you'll see an entirely different thing, where 8 people were standing on the sorting table. And this winery produces about 100,000 plus bottles. 8 people were there just looking at the grapes one by one to make sure remove the. So a complete contrast. Wines, it's one of the best from the region, and you see that, and so these were great learnings.
Is there anyone else? Of course, you had a decent journey so far. Would you remember of that has kind of helped you and shaped you who you are? And if you had an opportunity to kind of thank them with by this platform, who they would be?
In my Taj Exotica days, we had Ujjwal Bhimwal, who used to be a F&B manager, who used to push your boundaries and say, "No, you can do this." Come always. Mohit Malhotra, who taught me numbers and making a budget and all those things and considerations and calculations. Uh, so that helped in my career later. Uh, Many people became good friends later. Uh, Sunny Chuang, my mentor on the wine side, always, uh, you know, treated your viewpoint with respect always, even if his one differs. Taught me how you understand quality can be different from how another person perceives and understands. So, a great mentor. He still is. He still is my great mentor. My good friend, Michael Wimmer, he has opened his own business, but he was my mentor in MMI, taught me a lot about the management part of this, how to, because it was a completely new role. So him, Nadish Fernando, both of them taught me this side of the business. My friend Gautam Madhavan, who still continues to kind of mentor me into this business. It takes a village to raise a kid, right?
Now, since you're on the other side of the table, right? You're evaluating, you're there in most of the certification. As per you, globally, who are the next possible faces who will kind of reshape beverage industry, especially to champagne and wines, especially from India. If you can narrate someone that you can kind of think of, or anyone in your mind, would you want to name some of them?
Oh yes, why not? I mean, there's a great crop. There's right behind. There's about yeah. I mean, I'm a farmer. It's my industry. Yeah, so there's some great individuals behind who are coming, especially in court of master sommeliers. There are two people who are working it out in the industry in India. You have Ambar Deshmukh, you have Kevin Rodriguez, both in Mumbai, doing very, very well, promoting, talking, working with wines. Both passed their advanced level this year. Hriday Mehra, which I heard a lot of good things about. I've met him only once, and that too in a stressful exam situation. But I hear some great comments about him from many years, and they are all working in India, contributing to this. Then we have Harnil Mathur, who works in Hong Kong, leading the Black Sheep restaurant team, doing some wonderful things. Uh, you met Shivani ji last time, of course. I don't have to say much about that. Jay Singh, who's in Norway, but he's doing wonderfully well by himself. And see, you can take an Indian out of India. You can't take India out of the Indians. So at some point in time, I see them all coming back. Indian wine industry is changing. There's new trade agreements. There's new hope on wine and liquor business. Uh, Middle class is changing. We have more people in there. They have aspirations. You need a certain lifestyle. From people drinking to get drunk to people drinking a couple of those to enjoy the evening and come back and work the next day. Philosophy is changing. You see that happening. So all these people together will make the difference eventually.
We all know that industry as India, as the appetite to wine and beverages is kind of evolving, and every day we are learning new things. So where do you see this evolving? Let's say for anyone who's starting or trying to shape his career, what is the possible, career possibilities that you see coming in?
See, there are a couple of barriers in terms of how we trade, but what are we if we can't overcome the barriers eventually? So I'm sure the struggle will continue. I think the free trade agreements will give it a boost. We still have barriers, and I was meeting some wine producers in India. Some of them own wineries across two states, and they can't blend their wines together to make a bigger brand because you can't, transport alcohol that freely. We are 30 countries in one when it comes to alcohol. So one day things will change. One day people will realize that it's another product that should be able to go across borders and can be part of the GST regime, and that they would open up the entire industry. There are more and more tourists coming in. People don't have to physically go to the embassies. You can apply visas online and everything. More and more tourists are coming to India. Slowly, our cities are gearing up. So, hospitality will gear up to take. What we call tier two cities uh, are larger than most tier A cities in the world. So all that will come into the infrastructures gaining in last 10, 12 years, I've seen how rapidly the infrastructure has developed in India. So all this will help. When people have more money in pocket, people would probably want to venture out. The needs are fulfilled, the wants come in. So that's normal scenario. So I see that growing. And once you come to that hospitality part and people dining out, a sommelier suddenly transforms your meals because you open up dimensions that no one else you did not knew existed. And an Indian sommelier is even better to cater to Indian palate because come what may, we are not going to eat Western food so frequently. And we make wine in India. We should be proud to represent and help them understand look where China has come in last 12 years in terms of winemaking because they saw support. The government supported, the people supported, and you can find some really good Chinese wines now. I had been in the decanter panel last 2 years on the Asia thing, and I was quite surprised at the quality of wine in Japan. I was there in Japan in 2016, and I tasted the wines, and they were pretty mediocre, more or less a similar level like you find in India uh, now. But in 10 years, it has completely transformed. So industry changes with effort. And same thing will happen to dining. Sommeliers will promote, will talk about it. It will become a common perception to have a glass of wine with your meal. Uh, it's relatively a lot more sober thing to do than drinking, 2 shots of whiskey. So I'm not comparing, and I love my whiskey, but you know, it's something you drink in your meal. It adds value to it, and all those things will come up. I see it growing. I see it happening, and we have people who will make that effort. So why not? There are two streams. You have WSET, which is geared up towards wine business in general. So if you're looking into uh, representing wines, account management, where you go from one place to other, selling wines to them, you're in that side of the trade. You should focus on WSET. Obviously, you start with level 1 in wines, level 2, and level 3. And that knowledge, along with experience, will put things in perspective for you. So you're more confident talking about uh, your products. That gives you, more opportunity to constructively engage with your customer. On the other side, if you're in hospitality, if you're in non-trade, if you want to be a sommelier or a beverage manager, or one day even an F&B director with knowledge of things, you know, I think CMS is the right way. You go to Court of Master Sommeliers, you start introductory, and then you're tested on practical skills and knowledge, which you would have acquired over time, and you come back prepared next year if you didn't pass that year. Uh, it also still, enhances your skill, and that lets you shine. So when you're just starting out uh, in early stages and you're interested in wine, you start with your introductory, then you look at sommelier roles or beverage management roles, you do your certified, and then on, when you're pretty focused, you go into your advanced. And if you like, as Raman Saban, the current CEO, says, if you like torturing yourself, you get into master.
Tell me about the logistic aspect of the wine. How can we improve it for anyone who's probably, because I think it's a product which is shipped from one part of the world to other. So what happens in India? Where does it disconnect, and how can we improvise it to have that actual taste of what it actually was meant to be?
See, that's something which is keeping people away from wine, because what we're finding isn't necessarily what we should. Wine is a product of whole supply chain. To move from point A to point B, it should be managed at a constant cool temperature. It doesn't have to be refrigerated necessarily, but as long as you can maintain, and a good AC consistent, and then move it from one place to other and store it in an air conditioned place, it would taste good. If it gets through a heat stroke because somewhere in that whole thing, or you left it on the same shelf as your whiskey in 35 degrees, 3 days later, you don't have the same wine. It's not going to taste the same. The difference between a wine and vinegar is that someone paid attention to it. That's where you need a winemaker. After that person has made that transition and made you a wine, you need to manage it. It's like medicine as well, in a way. Certain medicines need to be cold transported. So this is a drink that needs to be cold transported. I don't know if it works the same way, but it helps a lot of people socialize. So
It should. It should. Okay. Now, one more question. As per your current role, I understand that you with MMI, and then it's of course it's a well-known name in the retail industry, in beverage retail industry. How does being in hospitality? How first of all, how is it different being when you were in hotels and now, and how does it help you being where you are and in this job role of expanding the business? How does it support you?
See, MMI in general does all kinds of things. We have retail stores of wines in Middle East, but we also have on trade. We are an affiliate of the airline, Emirates, and we are the wine division for Emirates. So lots of things. So we sell to hotels and resorts, and I work in Maldives. Maldives does not have retail stores; it has only on trade. So earlier I used to go from table to table selling wine in my sommelier role. Now I go from resort to resort selling wine to their sommelier. So we go, we have an interaction, we speak to them. And over time, the entire industry has become friends. I've been doing this for last 9 years now. So people are my friends, you speak to them. They have a question, they come back to me because they know I'll answer honestly. Uh, if and then we do our business on the side as well. They buy wines from us. We have good wines, they know that. Other people have good wines too, and they buy from them as well. It's the usual. But as I say, instead of table to table, now it's resort to resort. And then you go, you train, you develop, you see them rising, you give, you be a mentor if you need to be. And that's how life goes on.
One more question for you. In India, you mentioned about Indian wine is kind of evolving. Are there any name in your mind that you see are potential hits that would evolve, or it is evolving that people don't know about it?
Yes, obviously we have some lovely wines coming in from India, and you see the quality improving every year. You see people understanding uh, and changing. Quite impressed with what Prisma Estate near Bangalore. Very impressed with what Valone does in Igatpuri near Nashik. Sula obviously does a great job in educating Indians about wine. There's some really drinkable, nice wines that you could find. They're available around. Brewers has been around for some years. They ran into some issues lately, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. All of them would. There's a lot of experimentation. I think what we need to understand is more experimentation doesn't necessarily mean a great wine. You let that wine be. So at some point in time, you realize what worked, what did not, and people calm down and go there. Was it was sad to see Domain Shandong closing down because they had the know-how. Uh, but that said, we have those winemakers still around with us, and those are Indian people. Those are great assets for the industry. They should be absorbed by many of these quality-minded producers who want to make great wines because they have that know-how. Uh, and that's how you learn and grow. And Indian winery is in that growing phase. Yeah, these are some of the names I was quite happy tasting them.
As a professional, when you go out dine with your wife and your family, does this sommelier thing always comes out and you're always looking at the menu or you're looking at the tables as to how people are serving? Is that something, or you try to turn it off when you're out?
I try my best to turn it off, but I definitely look at the wine list, and it's my thing to kind of look at what's around and spot the best value on that menu. I listen to the sommelier when I take the wine suggestions, but I do compare my notes accordingly. But I don't interfere. I'm not someone. I switch off. I don't interfere in the process beyond just choosing a wine and pour from my table.
In terms of blind testing, you've done a lot. Is there any wine that still fools you?
Oh, I get fooled every day. Uh, most of us do. It's not an exact science. You can't say I'll now 100% get it right. On my best day, I did 75%. So you can imagine. Uh, but yeah, Albarino is very difficult for me to catch.
Give us some recommendation for, let's say, the best reds, for what goes well with what.
Nice, juicy red wines work very, very well with the majority of our hearty, strong, slightly spicy curries. Uh, a good Merlot, uh, a nice Shiraz, you know, uh, can work very, very well. If you're mostly into kebabs and those things, our own Valley Red, uh, Italian red wines, and also some nice white wines, especially oaky Chardonnays, can be very, very good with kebabs and things. Vegetarian Gujarati thali, which is a multitude of multiple different things. Try a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, try a rosé. They could be very, very good accompaniments and uplift the whole meal without distracting you from what's coming in. Uh, I recently spoke in Win Expo in Hong Kong, and we were talking about how richness adds value to Indian meal. So, anything which is from a relatively warmer climate, red or white, could be a very, very good accompaniment to many of our dishes. You're eating a biryani and a nice Californian white or a Rhone Valley white wine or a Alsace uh, Pinot Gris would be some great, great examples too. And why not our own Indian wines? They are in reasonably warm climate. We have that richness. We have that warmth. Um, Drink those.
So, in one word, tell me, how was the feeling when you actually knew that you were the one who have achieved, after, of course, a lot of hard work and years of practice? In one word, what was the feeling like?
Relief. I took a deep breath and I asked again if I heard it right. Uh, and Brian Julian was giving me the feedback. So he could be, you studied very hard, very good, but now you have to study even harder because now you have to keep up your title of Master Sommelier. And then, okay, okay. Okay. So it was really, that's the word.
Okay, if not Master Sommelier, what would be Kamal Malik otherwise?
I would still be working for wines, for beverages. I do it I like this profession. This is what I've done for the rest of my life. This is the only thing I know how to do. So I will still be here without the title, enjoying it as much as I do now.
What is one advice that you want to give to your upcoming generation of hospitality professionals?
See, a lot of our hospitality professionals come from background like mine. They don't know what they're getting into. I had never seen a five-star hotel. But, and not just hospitality. I mean, in small towns where you have less, there are more options than being doctors and engineers. And these are good options. These are great options. And now, obviously, with use your AI, use Google to find what other options can be, and dreams come true. When you dream and follow it, obviously it will take as much hard work as for anyone else, but things will happen. Just stick to things and give them a shot.
Okay, okay. Last question for you, Mr. Malik. What is next for Mr. Malik?
I've been thinking that I've enjoyed a little bit of free time. I read a few novels, not studied as hard as I normally used to. I just read a bit before I have to go for a course again, and especially the topics that I have to prepare. Uh, but I'm seriously thinking studying about Scotch whiskey, about sake. Uh, I will probably enroll in Master Sake Sommelier. We have one Indian. We have Kunal, who is a Master Sake Sommelier now. But I love sake a lot as well. So I'll probably end up doing it one day. These are some of the things I have plans about. I'm not thinking of MW now. It's probably too much of a commitment. But who knows tomorrow?
Thank you so much, Mr. Malik, for giving us this time and running us through your journey.
It's been great to relive certain moments in life. The future is bright. Indian hospitality will make its ways, and very, very, happy to be part of the discussion. All the best to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.